The shocking death of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle has brought the crisis of post-traumatic stress disorder back into the headlines. The man charged in the shooting of Kyle and one other person, 25-year-old Eddie Routh, has been described as a troubled veteran whom they were trying to help. A friend who assisted Kyle with his non-profit work on behalf of veterans said, "Chris died doing what filled his heart with passion, serving soldiers struggling with the fight to overcome PTSD. His service, life and premature death will never be in vain." Let's bring in MSNBC military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs, who's a recipient of the Medal of Honor. Colonel, we only just saw an incredibly disheartening report from the Department of Veterans Affairs on suicide among veterans. It found that 22 veterans per day, or one every 65 minutes, kills himself or herself. Now, given the enormity of this crisis, are we doing enough?
Well, you can never do enough, and there are lots of reasons for it. I think
but are we doing the bare minimum, given these numbers?
Oh, I think we're doing the bare minimum, but part of the problem is that it is difficult to do anything after the fact. We ought to be doing more before the fact. I mean, one question that comes immediately to mind is, are all the people we're bringing into the services, are they capable of handling what it takes to be in the military? And then we discover after the fact that there were problems before and so on. We're in an environment in which we have an all-volunteer force. We need to do a better job at accession time and make sure that the most stable of all of our youth who volunteer for service are the ones we take. We don't take just anybody.
Okay, well, Chris Kyle was known as the most lethal sniper in American military history. He was also known among his comrades in the armed forces for reaching out to them. In fact, the suspect in this case is thought to be one of the very people Chris Kyle was helping. Isn't this a call in and of itself for additional government assistance in terms of the condition of these people? Because, as we know, it's very hard to ascertain on occasions whether someone is suffering with PTSD.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. And as you know, we've spoken before, there used to be a tremendous stigma about identifying yourself as
self-identifying.
Yeah, and we're quite a bit better now, and the chain of command is very much involved in identifying people while they're on active duty as having problems. But when troops leave the service, that's when it's important that the service makes sure that the Veterans Administration knows that there are people who may have problems. I'm not certain that the services are doing the best job they possibly can to make sure that the VA is identified.
We don't know the exact details of this case, but there's been some speculation that this individual was at a shooting range because there was an opportunity, as it were, for exposure therapy, what psychiatrists describe in treating people with these kinds of conditions, taking them back to using things like weapons that they may have used in the field. Isn't that, though, in and of itself, a dangerous thing to do?
Well, I'm no psychiatrist, but I'm telling you, if somebody was unstable, if somebody were unstable, the last thing in the world I'd give them is a gun and access to guns. You know, so that this sort of amateur psychology that takes place among well-meaning people, their hearts are in the right place, but this is one case that demonstrates that this kind of stuff ought to be left to the professionals.
It's sad indeed.
Very sad.
Colonel Jack Jacobs, thanks as ever.
You're very welcome.